Thank you, gentlemen, for your introductions. We will now begin with Mr. Don Bates with our first question, and we will progress to his right. Will you personally read the entire bill before voting?
Yes. Because the bills I'll pass will be much smaller. The bills I'll pass will be plain enough that fifth graders can read them and understand them. Ladies and gentlemen, we must stop this madness on Capitol Hill. And I have to confess something. I didn't read the health care bill because I'm busy right now. I don't have time reading fiction.
Well, Brother Don, I did read the health care bill, and there's a lot of scary stuff in there. And yes, I will read the bills. I know that others have spoken here in our panel that they won't read the bill and didn't read the bill when they were there last time. The fact is, we don't want to have any bills coming through. Every bill that comes through and makes it into law is another link in the chain of our enslavement. The idea is to keep the federal government off our back. But yes, I will read every bill. I will yell, kick, and scream if they get any longer than, say, 50 pages, because I don't like to read that much either. And that's exactly what we'll work on. So yes, I will read every bill.
I won't read every page of every bill because there would be nothing else you could possibly do. I will know what's in every bill. I will make sure that the basic principles upon which I base my decisions are consistent with that bill. And when they aren't, I will not vote for it. If you don't go to Washington with a fundamental grounding in what you believe, bills can be contorted and amended and manipulated and maneuvered, and things can be added in conference committee where you're not a member of that conference. Things can be added after the vote, and they have been added on this last bill after the vote. So if you don't ground your vote, you don't ground your position in your political philosophy, what you believe in, what you have stood for, all that you have learned in your experiences, then you're going to be caught reading a bill and not fully understanding everything else that's going on. It's got to be based on principles.
In my 12 years of service in the United States House of Representatives, I was not able to read every single line of every single bill that I was called on to vote on. And so I won't be able to promise you that I will read every single line of every single bill. I will, however, do exactly what I did in my 12 years, and that is hire good people that share my values, that will help me in the legislative process, whether it's legislating on the House, on the Senate floor, in the committee process, in town hall meetings with constituents that I will have should you decide to elect me to serve you. And as Senator Coates said, it is important that we have a fundamental set of principles that we use to filter every single thing that we do in Washington, D.C., not just the legislative process, but also in our demeanor with our colleagues, with our relationship with our constituents. Those are the principles that are in the legislative record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do commit to reading every bill, and this is the reason why I think it's important. More than even reading the bill, understanding the bill. It is easy for us, you know how we are at night, to breeze through the last couple of pages of the book we want to finish. But if we can't comprehend the bill because the language is so construed, because of the legal jargon, and because we complicate it so much because of the lawyers in Washington that complicate it, and because of all the amendments, because of all the language that's inserted in the bill, at that point we need leadership who is going to keep these bills clean and vote on them for the issue that they are on a straight up or down vote, rather than putting these Christmas trees together full of different bills because they can't pass on their own. We have to stick them into a defense bill so that way we can pass it. I believe it's more important even than reading the bill is understanding the bill, and if I don't read it, I'll just vote no.
Also one from the audience. We will begin with Mr. Bainey on this one. The question is, what would you have changed about how the health care bill that was passed and about future bills?
Well, we wouldn't have been discussing the health care bill from the very beginning. You know, I have read that bill, and it does have a bunch of scary stuff in it, but what has me all worked up is that literally it destroys the relationship between yourself and a physician. You no longer will be able to determine what kind of care you receive. That care will be determined by a bureaucratic board that will determine what your economic value is to society. It wouldn't even gotten to the point that it has gotten to today. That's one of the reasons I'm angry. I'm angry at those who shoved it down our throats. I'm angry at those who are supposed to have my family's back and allow it to get to this point. It should never have even gotten this far. It shouldn't even made it to the floor for a vote. The first time these kind of concepts were brought up, there should have been someone tugging on somebody's tie. And that's what I will do to change these kinds of bills.
Well, if I could only change one thing, I would change the mandate. The government is trying to mandate on states. As Governor Daniel pointed out, this mandate is going to cost billions of dollars to Hoosiers. It's going to raise our taxes. Today, this afternoon, there was something else discovered in the bill that's going to cost the state $400 million in addition to that. But more important, this bill shouldn't have been taken up. It is not the time to take it up. The problem facing us right now is an economic crisis. We need to get people back to work. We need to get employment moving again. We need this country on a sound fiscal basis. And how this administration could possibly say, we're going to set that aside and make that secondary, and we're going to push our liberal agenda through while we've got the votes in the Congress, is a disservice to America. It's a disgrace to America. We ought to be working on jobs and getting the economy going and doing other things later.
The approach to health care reform should have been much more limited, and it should have been limited to free market approach. For example, to allow individuals to purchase health insurance policies across state line, to create tort reform, to eliminate the propensity of defensive medicine, to create alternatives to traditional health insurance, such as health marts or association health plans, to allow for greater access and lower per beneficiary costs for that access and for those insurance policies. There are reforms that should be made. There are ways that the government can get out of this process and allow for greater innovation. It is not a government takeover of the healthcare system that Congress has recently passed and the President has signed into law. That's why, as part of the first obligation of a newly Republican-controlled United States Senate, we must begin to repeal provisions. We must begin to put bills in front of the President where he's called on to repeal and replace it with good policy.
First of all, I've signed on to the Club for Growth Repeal It pledge. I believe that this is the wrong bill for America. I think that the problem is really, it's not health insurance right now, it's the cost of medicine. And as John pointed out, there's things that this government should be focused on in getting back to free market principles, encouraging young people to go into medicine. I was just talking to a young lady down in Topala just recently, and she's having second thoughts about going into medicine because the government is going to dictate to her how much money she can make, when she can make it, how she's going to practice medicine, who she's going to practice medicine to. I've been to Haiti and I've been to Russia and I've seen communistic and socialistic medicine, and it is not right. It is immoral for us to allow our federal government to be able to take over our healthcare system through insurance first rather than addressing the real reason, and instead of regulating our healthcare system through mandates and forcing nurses to stand at nursing stations for 40% of their time filling out paperwork because of the government. As Ronald Reagan said, government is the problem.